quick. That's how I'll sync up the camera to the audio. And we are live. We're back here, the CG's Green Room Podcast. I'm with Tim Brennan, our guest today. How are you feeling?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Nice. I'm good as well. I always, whenever we start, I always usually cut off a natural conversation to give the intro to the podcast. Mm-hmm. So there's like a weird dynamic there. I'm good though, man.
Good.
It is good to see you. So we have a very casual form to this. Basically, we're just going to talk for about half an hour, maybe 40 minutes, and then I will periodically direct that conversation back towards comedy.
Okay.
How long have you been doing it now?
That's such a hard question because I started my first time, like there's two different times I started, but the first was in 2013. Okay. After I graduated college, and then that was mainly just an excuse for me to go out and get drunk. I didn't take it too seriously. Then I got sober in 2016, so that's technically when I like to say I really started. So what is that, 7 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, I should know that. I just had a sober anniversary. I should know it's 7 years. But
congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
So was part of like getting sober was also getting serious about comedy? Did you like discover a new passion for it at that time?
Kind of. I knew I needed to quit drinking because it was just getting too much. Like I probably would have died if I didn't quit. So I'm happy I did that. But there was a period where it was like, okay, I have to get used to being a person again. Mm-hmm. You know, like I got to see if I even like comedy. Like I even want to do it. Real quick, the screen went off.
Oh, it's okay. The display goes to sleep, but as long as the red light's blinking.
Okay, cool.
We're good.
Should we restart?
No, we're good. It's still on.
All right. So yeah, when I got sober in 2016, I took a lot of time off, like just to kind of figure out like, okay, here's how you be in social situations, you know, without drinking, and like just kind of exposure therapy for myself almost. And one of those things was like, well, I liked comedy while I was drinking, but am I still gonna like it? Am I still gonna, you know, be able to write and try to be funny? And it seems to have gone okay. I'm glad I did it because I think I have a different perspective now. I'm more clear thinking. Like if I listen to my recordings while I was drinking, it's just kind of like, oh, they're not laughing at any of the jokes. They're laughing at just a really drunk guy up there. Yeah. So now I feel like I'm getting laughs more for the right reasons and working harder that way.
Yeah. I quit drinking for like 3 years after college.
Yeah.
I did that stint. And a part of that for me, and I feel like a part of it for a lot of people, is getting sober is dealing with social anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
And like, because you have so many feelings and so many like senses coming back to you.
Yeah.
So after like taking that time off, what was that like getting on stage and doing comedy while dealing with that? You know, like did it feel different being on stage, like your nerves?
It was different because I wasn't nervous. Like the first times I started feeling comfortable, like talking to people, like was on stage. I was more comfortable on stage than off stage.
Yeah.
So I would say comedy helped, like kind of ease some of that social anxiety, which I think we just all still have. Like I can't speak for everyone, but I do. Like I'm sometimes more comfortable on stage than I am just talking to comics at like an open mic or on a show like off stage.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, yes, I do think it did help. Like as far as I don't even know the right word for it, but just like becoming social again without alcohol.
Yeah, I agree with that. There are definitely nights where it's like I am much more comfortable. I feel much more comfortable on stage than I do like just hanging out with comics at a mic.
I think it's one of those things because like we know what we're going to talk about on stage. Like it's the ball's in our court. We don't have to wait for a response from somebody.
Yeah.
And we kind of know where to take it. So I think that that definitely helped me. Like especially being sober and just opening up again.
Yeah. I know we talked about we were at Shakers the other day, and we talked about that. You got to open for Atell.
Yes.
And that was like your pinnacle like milestone for comedy. Like if I could achieve this thing, then I'm done.
Yeah, it's still like amazing to me that it happened.
Yeah.
Cause it was one of those things like I was telling you and Aaron, like it was one of those like when you start comedy you have these kind of like outlandish goals, and one of mine was like how crazy would it be if I got to do a show with Atell? And I did, and it was just like, it's a weird, surreal thing. Like, oh, I really accomplished something I thought was just like way out of like how crazy would it be, rather than, oh, this is possible.
Yeah.
So doing that, and it was so much fun. Yeah, it was the best weekend I've had in comedy for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, his audience was cool. Like, Dave was awesome. It was Alex Price was the feature, who's an Indianapolis guy who was super cool. So, yeah, the whole weekend was just amazing. It was, yeah, it's still unbelievable to me that it happened.
Yeah. Is there like kind of a sadness now that it's over though?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know about sadness, but it's more of like, all right, what's next? Like,
Yeah.
but it's still something I'm glad it happened. Like, I'd rather it happen than it didn't. But yeah, there was, especially after that weekend was over, it's like, all right, well, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to do that again.
Yeah.
Like, it's over now, but it's something, yeah, I still, like, I got a picture of me and him on stage because he brought us up, like, at the end of the show. So I got that, and it's, like, signed by him, and I have it framed. So, like, every time I leave my apartment, I see that picture, and it's just like, yeah, that was awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah, so there's not, like, a sadness. It's just, like, it was such a milestone for me that, like, I just look back on it fondly, even though it was only in September. Like, it wasn't that long ago.
Well, and it's nice that you have that picture because, like, you get to see that physically and interact with it every day, whereas stand-up feels so intangible all the time, I feel like.
Yeah, if you don't film your set, it's kind of like it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Like, the people in the room know, sure. But if you say, yeah, I crushed last night, it's like, oh, let me see your clip. I don't have the clip.
Yeah.
Oh, did you really crush then? Like,
yeah,
did you even go up yesterday?
I don't know, even having like a clip for me, like if I get a good clip, I'll watch it a lot just to feel good about myself. But like, I don't know, even then, like the feeling of elation from that fades. And like, I don't know, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, but like a good show is like the greatest feeling in the world to me. Like it's as high as I get ever.
Yeah.
And sometimes I can like ride that feeling for days. And there are other times where it's like I'll get in a car after a show like that and all of it just immediately spills out of me. And it's so weird because like, you know, you have the, like stand-up goals for yourself, no matter like how big they are. But it's like, I worry that once you get that thing, that it all just spills out.
What do you mean by spills out?
Like
like there's nothing left to accomplish?
Yeah, or even just the sense of gratification, because like it's an intangible thing.
I'm never gonna feel this good again, kind of thing.
Yeah, well, and also you don't get to hold on to it for very long.
I see what you mean. Yeah, like there's times like if I have a really good show, it's like, okay, I'm not gonna go to open mics like for a couple days.
Yeah,
like I'm really gonna sit in this. Yeah, I'm really gonna sit in this and appreciate it.
Yeah,
and then I'll think about going back to open mics.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean. Yeah, it's like I want to keep doing this because I want this to last forever.
Yeah.
And like I'm at a point, like, I don't know, I've always kind of been this way. I'm hyper critical of my sets. Like I may not have the most material for someone who's been around as long as me. It's because I'm trying to fine tune everything.
Yeah.
Like I will go through a thesaurus. Glad I pronounced that word correctly on here. But I will, try to find synonyms for words to get quicker to my punchline. And then I'll go back and I will listen to my sets and be like, that got a laugh, but it's not good enough for me.
Yeah.
So it's kind of in that same way as a really, really good show. Like if I write a joke that's getting a really good laugh, I will go back to all my other jokes and be like, how can I get that laugh to be even louder and to be even more of a reaction?
Do you do that work pen and paper? Like, will you like sit down and like write out a joke, and that's when you do the thesaurus? Like, where you?
I was doing it on my phone for a while.
Okay.
But I am trying to do more pen and paper.
I feel like everybody always says they're trying to do more pen and paper.
Yeah, because you get so distracted by your phone.
Yeah.
Like I've been in the middle of ideas and then got distracted by like a notification or something on my phone. And it's like, wait, what was I talking about?
Yeah.
So, the more I can just put that aside and really focus.
It's interesting, too, like how important wording can be to a bit. Because like you'll even see people who are on stage like doing well, they have like a good joke, but there's like there's just something that they say that's like awkward in the phrasing or the word that they use, or like they double up on a word, and it's like if you saw that in writing, you would notice that there was something like grammatically wrong with this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point. Like a lot of people, I write on stage. That's fine, but like if you write it out, first off, it's going to go into your memory better.
Yeah.
But you can also pick up on those things, like, and I'm not going to tell anyone what to do. Like, who am I to tell anybody how to do comedy?
Yeah.
But what would work for me is writing it out and seeing how can I get to this quicker, or when I'm reading it back to myself, is this sentence too long?
Yeah.
Like, do I lose my breath during the sentence? Which there are a few jokes that I've had to rework because I'm like, I don't have the lung capacity for this. I vape. What can I say? So yeah, I think that's a good idea. Is to write it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Well, there's also like you don't notice sometimes you're doing things that are distracting, or you're saying things that are distracting, right? Because it's like when you're in a joke, you have like legitimately you have a point that you're getting to with everything that you're saying.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of times there's like what we call fat, and like the fat isn't always just filler. Sometimes it's things that's like legitimately distracting from what you're trying to make. Like you ever see like someone on stage at a mic or something, and they're doing a bit, and they finally get to a punchline, and like you put the math together and see how like what they were saying was funny.
Why that was a complete thought, but I almost forgot what you were talking about because there was too much around it, like that kind of thing.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that happens in so many different ways. There's like mannerisms can be distracting, your word choice can be distracting.
I do this a lot. I've done it like 15 times on the podcast. I always push my glasses up, and I notice that watching my sets. I'm like, I think I just need to tighten my glasses. Like
just glue them to your face.
Once I notice it, I'm like, it's bothering me now.
You should get a strap, like Rex Specs.
Like Horace Grant from the Bulls?
Yeah.
Is that before your time? You're younger.
That is before my time,
okay.
I think.
Well, if you ever played NBA Jam, you get it.
Horace Grant?
Yeah.
I don't think I ever played.
He was the one who had like the goggles. I just did it again, by the way.
Once you point it out, though, you become so aware of it. Yeah, maybe. I move my hands around a lot. I've noticed, like, looking back at myself on stage, I like, my non-mic hand is always, like, going up and down, like, by my face, like this.
It's like a weird Mariah Carey thing. Like how
it is weird.
And
but it's starting, like, when I watch it on tape, sometimes it feels like it's, like, a barrier between me and the audience. It's like a weapon that I'm using, is my hand all the time. I don't know. That's something I've been thinking about.
I want to just now, like, edit a sword into your hand during your sets. I mean, I think it's good to have movement because it kind of accentuates your story. A lot of, like, it's better to be more moving than just standing there just all still like a psycho. Like,
yeah. And it's
straight ahead.
It is, like, it's engaging and it draws attention in the same way, like, there is so many things that are distracting, but there's something about, like, moving your hands can bring people literally back in. It
kind of shows, like, interest in your own story that you're that animated.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you should be paying attention to this now, too.
Yeah.
Because as you can see, I'm pretty into this.
Yeah. Is there anything like, I don't know how to ask this, but like, is there anything that you feel like you don't have stylistically as a comic that you want to work on?
Storytelling.
Yeah.
I would like to be a good storyteller, and I think that's another reason. Like, I'm comfortable doing, like, the longest sets I'm going to do are like 30, 35 minutes. But my jokes are generally pretty short, and I think that's, first off, starting in Chicago, you get 3 minutes at an open mic.
Yeah.
I wanted to try to get as many laughs per minute, so I kept all my stuff real short. But I would like to become, like, better storyteller, and I'm just not sure how to do that. Like, I've tried a few different ways. Like, I'll start with like a 4-minute bit, and then by the time I actually get it to where I like it, it's like 45 seconds maybe.
Yeah.
So that's something I definitely would like to work on.
Yeah, well, I think also if you, like, because I feel like you have the brain for cutting fat, for like the perfecting a joke brain, and I wonder if that is working against, like, the storytelling muscle.
I think it is 100% working against it.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to get as many laughs as I can, but, like, it's also, if I don't feel like something's important in a joke, I'm going to take it out.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll use it for a different premise or something. But it's something I would like to do. Like, one of my goals in the new year is to get a bit, like, just one single bit that's at least 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, one single story.
Yeah.
And like there's one I've been working on and one I've kind of written a few different ways. So hopefully if anyone sees me in 2024, they'll hear that 5-minute
That 5-minute chunk.
That's what you have to look forward to.
I've been kind of in a similar boat where I feel like a lot of my bits are very short, and I would like to lengthen them. I would like to spend more time on them. That's like advice that I've gotten from a lot of comics that are like older and ahead of me.
Sure.
Is to like stay on a premise for longer, and I feel like part of the reason is like there's like you're shortening your setup time. Because if all of your jokes are short, then you're set up, punchline, set up, punchline, set up, punchline. But when you have longer bits, it's like you have a shorter setup, and then you can keep like adding on jokes onto the same premise.
Yeah, like you can take a certain subject, and this goes back to like writing pen and paper, is think about like, you know, I have a lot of jokes about sobriety.
Yeah.
Because it's a huge part of my life. Of course I'm going to. But that started, like the chunk of material I have is... If I fall off the wagon, I lose like 15 minutes of material.
You probably gained 15 though.
Oh, no, I don't know if I'd remember all that. But, so like I wrote down just the word sober and then started listing like, what do people ask me about it? Like ask yourself, interview yourself basically. So you take one certain subject and then you get all these different, pretty much premises for different ways you can take it.
Yeah.
I just did it again.
Yeah. What like
tighten my glasses.
That's something else I've been thinking about in comedy is like I would like to feel like myself on stage, and I would like to feel like I'm like presenting myself. Mm-hmm. And I feel like part of what I want to be doing is what you're talking about, where like you take these big areas of your life and you kind of break them down, you work. So I'm at a point right now where I'm kind of like trying to figure out what the biggest aspects of my life are.
Yeah.
What do you feel like that is for you? Like if you had to describe like the biggest pieces of your life, like one of them being sobriety, one of them probably being comedy, like what makes up your life?
Like I'm 36, so objectively, like from the outside perspective, I'm not what a typical 36-year-old is. Like I'm not married, don't have any kids, live on my own, sure, but like I look at friends my age and kind of see where they're at. And then how am I different than that? So I'd say like one of the bigger subjects is comparing it sounds bad just on its own, but comparing myself to like my peers.
Yeah.
That's a huge part of my act because I do feel like I don't want to say at a different place, but yeah, like no, not married, don't have any kids. Like a lot of my friends my age do. So I have a very different experience than them. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of fun comparing like, okay, what is their typical weekend like compared to mine? Or like, what are they into now? What am I still into?
Yeah.
So things like that, a lot of comparing and contrasting that.
Yeah, I feel like so much of comedy is like just feeling like you're on the outside.
I mean, yeah, this is a weird thing to do.
It is a weird thing to do, and the longer that you do it, what I'm finding out is like the more that it pulls you away from normal life, right? Because it's like just the longer that you spend as a comic, the longer you spend like doing this weird lifestyle.
Yeah,
you just get further and further away from normalcy.
It's like a day job. Like the people back when we all worked in offices, those are the people you literally spend most of your week with.
Yeah.
So you're around that all the time. And then you become friends with some of those people. So even outside of work, you're hanging out with them. That is kind of how comedy is.
Yeah.
Like when we're not on stage and we're all waiting around for a show to start or something, we're just surrounded with each other. So, and then if you're traveling, it's all about comedy. And you kind of lose touch with those people outside of that world. And sometimes you might not be able to feel like you can relate to them as much anymore. I try to, like... The majority of my very, very good friends are non-comics.
Yeah.
Like people I grew up with, people I worked with. I would say the people closest to me are non-comics, but there's like a handful of comics that I consider part of that really close group too.
But do you feel like you have a good balance with that in your life of like being Tim Brennan, a person, a human being going through like a life experience?
Brennan the man.
Tim Brennan the man.
Tim Brennan the character. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean... Because my friends outside of comedy don't care, really. Like, they think it's cool, but I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I don't want to sound like I'm talking bad about comics, but sometimes you don't know. It's like, are we having a conversation or are they trying to work a bit on me?
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have that separation.
Yeah.
And yeah, I appreciate that time with my non-comic friends.
Yeah, well, comics are like spend most of the time freaking out about comedy, I feel like. I spend most of my time internally freaking out about comedy.
Yeah, I spend a lot of my time thinking about it. Even when I'm with my non-comic friends, like I'll observe things and be taking notes. Like my friend needed a sub for his bowling team, so I was doing that for a couple weeks. And like I would just take a look around and like someone would be talking to me, I'd be like, hold on a second, because I'm writing down a new idea. And yeah, so it does kind of like that's how I don't like. I think if you've been doing this like 2 years, it's pretty hard to quit.
Yeah.
Because your brain is conditioned to try to find the funny in things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to just turn that off.
Yeah. Also, giving up, I think, gets more embarrassing the longer that you do it, which I think is...
I mean, I see people make those announcements like, I'm done with comedy. If I quit comedy, no one's going to know. You'll just stop seeing me post anything.
I also, like, I love comedy so much, and like I can't imagine quitting. But like, even if I wanted to, I don't know what I would do with my life at that point.
It would be a lot of time, yeah, that you got to figure out. Okay, do I take up like whittling now?
Yeah.
Like, what do I do? Because it is a huge part of our lives. And there's something I do envy about that, though. Like, you know, my non-comic friends. It's like, oh, when they're done with work, they just go home and relax. It's like, chill. I don't think I know how to do that anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because our brains are always working.
Yeah.
Because we always want to find the next bit, or in my case, refine older ones. But it's like, it's hard to just sit and relax, I think.
It's really hard. And whenever I feel like when I try to do that.
Especially now that I'm sober, too.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I don't have much to just turn my brain off now.
What turns your brain off?
Probably wrestling.
Like watching wrestling?
Watching wrestling, probably. Like, that's when I can just get invested into something.
Yeah.
Or even, no, mainly just that. What am I saying? Music, I think, does. I've been going to the gym a lot, which has kind of served almost as like meditation for me. So, like, I have my playlist, and yeah, usually I can kind of get my mind off things there.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a hard time, like, when I'm like trying to wind down and relax, there's the part of me that's actively trying to decompress, and there's another part of me that's like mad at myself for doing that.
Yeah.
Because I'm always aware of like where I'm at and how far behind I feel like and where I feel like I should be.
It's almost like a shame in not working.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even when I'm going to bed, like one thing I've been doing lately, it's like my fan clicks in my room. I've been counting every time it clicks, just so I'm only focused on that. Because my mind will wander while I'm trying to go to sleep. And like, I have like a notebook next to my bed.
Yeah.
So if for some reason, right as I'm about to fall asleep, something comes to me, I can write it down. But I've been just trying to lately like focus just on the fan clicking noise so I can fall asleep without, you know, I feel like I sleep better that way.
Yeah.
Which I think is important.
Yeah, I think it's very good for you. I was going through a patch this summer where I was just basically never sleeping because I was working full time and like doing as much comedy as I could. And I work at a fucking coffee bar, so it's like I'll be out late and then up early on like an hour and a half.
And you're
sleep.
drinking coffee all day.
Drinking coffee in the morning.
How much time to sleep?
Drinking beer at night. It was a long summer, and dude, like being backed up on sleep turns you into like a lunatic. You lose like
well, you hallucinate kind of.
Yes.
Or like things just don't seem real, or something called like micro naps. Have you heard about that?
No.
It's where you're not actually asleep, but it's almost like daydreaming, where your brain kind of shuts down into that sleep mode if you go long enough without actually sleeping. So, and those things, like, that's when dreams happen. So you start hallucinating and stuff. I don't know. I sound like I'm an expert on this. I'm just an idiot that doesn't sleep.
It takes micro naps.
Yeah, that counts as fan clicking.
Yeah. All right, we got like 5 minutes left to roll here. A couple things I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
One, I'd like to know advice that you would give to yourself. One, when you were just starting comedy.
Quit drinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty easy one, I
Yeah.
guess. All right, so like advice you would give yourself maybe 2 years into doing comedy and being sober. So like you've been doing comedy and you've been sober like 2 years in. Where were you at, and like what have you learned since then?
What have I learned since then? I'm trying to.
Here's another way to look at it: is like what do you think outside of sobriety? Like what do you think your biggest growth spurt was in comedy?
Recording sets, listening, even if you think it sucks, like you had a bad set, watch your set or listen to it, figure out why it went the way it did.
Yeah.
I think that's huge. And especially the filming aspect of it, because you find out you do things like this all the time. Just little things like that can really help. And just be honest with yourself. That's what I think what I would tell. Like, I feel like I'm not the only one who's ever done this, but you know, sometimes it's like, oh, the room hated me. It's like, yeah, that can only go so far. Sometimes it's you.
Yeah, there's a reason they hated you.
Yeah. And it's like, if everyone bombs that night, that doesn't happen often, though. It happens every once in a while, but be honest with yourself. Was it actually the room? Was it me?
Yeah.
What can I do differently? Even if the room did suck, what could I have done differently to make that room not suck?
Yeah, well, because even if the room doesn't, if the room sucks, your night doesn't have to suck. You can still like get work out of your night, and I think you have to adjust your levels for what like a successful night of comedy is when you're.
And that kind of goes with the next thing I would tell myself,
Mm-hmm.
you know, 2 years into sobriety or whatever, is don't live in your last set, good or bad. And like I did that a lot, and I think I missed a lot of growth opportunity for that.
What do you mean?
It's kind of contradictory to what I was saying earlier about living in that, like I don't want to go to Mike's because I want to live in that good feeling of having those great shows. I feel like, because I would take time off, like if I had a killer set, but I had nothing booked the next week, I would just kind of live in that and be like, I'm good at this.
Yeah.
Whereas you'd be like, okay, that was great. I'm grateful I had a good show. How can I continue having good shows?
Yeah.
And then let's say go to an open mic and it sucks. Go back to what we talked about before. Okay, why did it suck? What could I do better? What can I do to that great show I had, make that more consistent? Even when it seems like the kind of, like the deck stacked against me. That's a phrase, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, it is now if it isn't. But like, what can I do to take those bad situations and make them as good as they can possibly be?
Yeah. It is kind of a deal with the devil when you have a good set and you decide to buy into your own hype.
Yeah.
And feel like you're good, because then like when you have a bad set, you have to then believe that you are like a terrible, worthless human being.
Yes.
Because you already signed the deal that I was great when it goes good. So when it goes bad, I'm terrible.
Well, yeah, it's a very polar thing.
Yeah.
But that's why, like, if people don't generally ask me for advice, or like if they do that, in which I'm always willing to advice, whatever. I've done this for a little bit.
Yeah.
I know some things, but certainly not everything. And what I do doesn't work for everybody. But if they do, I won't give any advice until after my set. Because if it sucks, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I just like, why would I ever listen to that guy?
That's a good point.
So anything after I'm done, sure, let's talk. But I also don't give unsolicited advice too.
Yeah.
Everyone can learn on their own way.
Yeah, I think that's why I ask for a lot of it.
Well, imagine if you give unsolicited advice and then you go bomb your dick off.
Yes.
That's even worse.
I've seen guys do that.
Oh, yeah, I see it all the time.
Yeah, that's a tough look.
Yeah.
Do you have, I feel this, well, so like, after like a night of comedy, kind of good or bad, usually to the extremes, like when it's really good or when it's really bad, I have like this buzz coming home that feels like it needs to be satiated with something. So it's like, and it'll usually either drive me into like drinking, smoking, or eating.
Sure.
Do you get that?
I got a vape.
You just crank it out into the vape?
Vape or food.
Yeah.
A lot of times, like those are my vices still. I mean, I've been trying to watch what I eat, because I've been going to the gym more. The more I eat like shit, then the worse I'm gonna feel and not go to the gym. But yeah, like sometimes after shows, like I will go and I'll get something really good to eat, just to kind of like that's the end of the day for me.
Yeah.
It's like I had a great show, and now I'm having a great meal. It's like I feel okay right now.
A nightcap.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
It's a nightcap.
But a lot of times it will just be my vape.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a podcast.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
I think that's all we do. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, of course.
I think this is our Christmas episode. Well, I guess it is our Christmas episode, but it won't come out till after Christmas. So Merry Christmas. I hope you guys had a good Christmas.
I hope you got everything you wanted.
Yeah, I hope it all came true.
And if you didn't, there's always next year, and you can hear my 5-minute bit.
Yeah, or you could be Jewish next year, and then you try again for 8 nights.
Yeah, you might have a completely different holiday to work with.
You might, yeah. And there might be a lot of backlash